Hello and welcome to another video. My name's Jess and today I'm going to show you how to carve a very basic simple spoon from a piece of green wood with just your standard bushcraft knife. So this is the knife I'll be using today. Any knife will do as long as it's sturdy, it's got a full tang and you're comfortable with it and you're familiar with it. Now before we get started, just run you through a couple of pointers. So firstly, you need to make sure that any wood that you select is not toxic. So if this is going to be your first attempt at carving a spoon or any carving project, I would recommend using something like goat willow. It's just nice and soft and it's quite a forgiving wood to use. I'm going to be using hazel today, but you want to avoid woods like yew, for example, because even though you can eat the berries, the rest of the tree, including the wood, is toxic, and it wouldn't be a good idea to make a spoon out of something that's toxic. Be sure to watch this video all the way through before you go out and try this. And if you're not sure about anything, then leave me a little comment and I'll try and get back to you if you need extra help. So, step one, wood selection. I have a reasonably straight piece of hazel here. There is a little kink at the end. Some people who are more experienced may spot a kink in the end of a piece of wood and actively choose that. They may decide to use this end because you can get a nice sort of curve to the spoon, but we're not going to worry about that today. We're just going to use a section off of this straight area here. So I've selected my piece and I'm just going to split it with my knife by batoning through it, and you do that by sort of placing your knife on the top of the piece of wood, and you're going to put pressure on the handle with one hand, and then using the piece of wood that you just cut, you're going to strike the blade of the knife at the tip and push down at the same time, and that will split your piece of wood in half. You're then going to look at the cross section, and I tend to choose the larger of the two pieces, but it's absolutely up to you what you decide. I'm going to use this end for the main body of the spoon, and then I'm going to create the handle out of this piece. So what I'm going to do is carve out to make the handle first. You don't need to mark it out with charcoal. I've just done this so you can see roughly what I'm going to remove. So all of this black area here, I'm going to carve away as a first step. So you should be left with something that looks a bit like this. So the next step is to flip it over and remove some more material from the back of the spoon. And I'm also going to take this off to tidy up the end as well. Okay, now you should have something that looks a little bit like this. So we've tidied up the end and we've now got a visible handle that curves slightly into the back of the spoon. Now at this stage I would recommend tidying up this back bit, so if you want to have a bit more of a steeper curve then you'd work on this bit here, and also we're going to flatten and smooth out this area so that it's nice and safe and doesn't have any splintery bits on it. So when you're flattening this area, if you are using a piece of wood that has a visible pith running down the middle, then you want to make sure that you are going down far enough that you're actually removing that pith so that you end up with just solid wood. So you can see there's the pith and there's the solid wood. Okay, once you have finished your handle, you're happy with it, and you've completely flattened and removed the pith from the top side of the spoon, you're ready for the final carving step, which is where you are going to turn it upside down again, and you're going to finally carve out the rest of the back of the bowl of the spoon. Let's just mark it with charcoal so you can see. roughly what I'm going to do. So I'm now going to carve this end of the spoon like this, and obviously I'll be removing material so that it tapers nicely, like to match this side here. And in order to do that safely, I'm actually going to hold the handle of the spoon that I've created and carve like this, so that I'm not carving towards me. I'm always carving away from my body and keeping the blade facing forward or downwards as well. So you can see I'm removing the material, but I'm also gradually starting to taper the spoon as well, so that we get that nice curvy shape that we're hoping for. So you can see we're almost there. We've just got to remove this little bit of material. Okay, so we've now got something that looks a little bit more like a spoon. We've just got to remove this remaining bark. And now you should be left with something that looks a bit like this. Now, I refer to this as a blank, a spoon blank, because it's the rough shape, but it's got no decoration and it's also got no hole in it. So in order to create a hole in the spoon without a special tool, we're actually going to use fire. So very carefully, remember to always cut away from you, never hold the blade towards you. We're going to push the blade into the middle and just create a small sort of hole or divot in the middle of our spoon. So we have a hot coal from the fire that we have very carefully maneuvered. You can use your knife or you can use a set of tongs to do this. And we're going to just set that coal into the divot against our spoon, and then very carefully give it some oxygen. If you don't feel confident holding down loose coals with your knife, you can always light a stick like this and sort of reintroduce it to the fire to make sure that it's red hot, and then you can just burn through like this with a stick. So there are a few hazards with this. You've got smoke inhalation, which can be avoided by just being very direct with your airflow and then moving yourself away. So you bring the spoon and the coals to you, introduce some air, and then you take it straight away. Don't leave it hovering by your face. Second danger is if you're using a stick especially, the coals can tend to fly off the end, and there's always a risk that they'll fly off and then burn your clothing or you'll burn yourself. So if you don't feel confident enough to use the coals directly, like I've said, you can always use a pair of tongs instead. You can also use one of those little pocket bellows to introduce the airflow if you don't feel confident bringing your face really close to something that's roasting hot. Have a good think before you go out and try this, because it's really important that you reduce the risk of injury and you figure out what way works best for you with your confidence and your skill level. So I've been doing this for about 15 minutes and you can see here we have a hole in our spoon. Now, if you've made it this far, fantastic, well done. There's only one more step left to do, and that is to take your knife and just remove this charred material on the outside of the spoon. And that's, very easy to do. And then if you would like to, you can remove the charred bits around the edges. I don't really mind them personally, I think they add character. And then on the inside you'll see that there's some little loose pieces of charcoal left over. You just want to remove those so that they don't come off while you're using the spoon. And then you should be left with something that looks a little bit like this. Now, some people choose to completely remove the blackened area. You can get stone in there, you can burnish the whole thing. You can basically do whatever you like with this. You can tidy it up, make it nice and fancy, decorate the handle. If you wanted to, you could leave bark strips on it. So like this, for example, this fork has got bark rings on it. This really is just the absolute basic of the basic, really. But once you've mastered this, you can then go on to produce a whole bunch of other things. Hollowing out wood with fire is a really, really useful bushcraft skill. It can be used obviously to make spoons, bowls, cups. You can also hollow out large branches to create holes for axe heads as well. Back in ancient times, they used to hollow out entire trees by burning through them to make boats, to make canoes. So this skill is a very, very good skill to have in your collection of skills. So we started with this, we split it into this, and we ended up with this. Now obviously, one of the benefits of splitting the wood in half means that if you're a beginner, you're new to this, it means you get 2 tries. If you went through that whole process and you messed up or you're not happy with your finished product, you've still got another half left, so you can try again. So there you have it. One spoon carved with your basic bushcraft knife and hollowed out with fire. So if you made it to the end of this video, then thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, so that concludes our bushcraft skills tutorial on how to create a spoon with just a regular bushcraft knife and then hollowing out the actual bowl of the spoon with fire. If you like what you see and would like to see more videos from me, then please like, subscribe and leave a comment letting me know what bushcraft skill you'd like me to demonstrate next. I'm going to take this home with me. So yeah, thanks again and I'll see you in the woods.